Hello and welcome to this new video in which we're going to look at how to solve a bridges puzzle, which is also sometimes referred to as Hashi. So to solve a bridges puzzle, you have to build bridges between islands, which are these circled cells, and the number within each circle cell or island tells you how many bridges you must build to other islands. So 1 tells you you've got 1 bridge to build, 2 you have 2 bridges to build, and so on. Bridges can go horizontally or vertically, and you can have no more than 2 bridges between any pair of islands. So you could have 2 bridges there, but you couldn't have 3. It's also important to know that bridges cannot cross each other, so that would not be valid because these bridges cross each other. And also in the final puzzle, it must be possible to island hop from any island to reach any other island in the grid. So for instance, we couldn't have this one connecting to one because then both of these islands are fully used up. They have 1 bridge each, so nothing else can connect into them. So they'd be isolated from the rest of the puzzle. Whereas it must be possible to move from any island to any other island in the grid, and here you could only move from one to the other. Okay, so let's get started. We'll look through the grid slowly and methodically and try and find a logical solution. Every bridges puzzle should have a single logical solution that you can reach through the use of logic and without guessing. So in fact, let's start here where we have this 1 and 1. We've just shown that they can't connect to each other because then they'd be isolated from the grid. So we know that this 1 must have a bridge down here, and I'll try and draw the bridges fairly firmly on the paper so that they'll show up on the camera. Now one thing you might like to do is cross out an island once you've placed all its bridges. That's just to stop you accidentally placing too many bridges between islands, which is quite a common way of going wrong with these puzzles. And now I'm just going to look over the grid and look for other places where you can immediately place some bridges. So with this 3 here, it can only connect to 2 different islands, and since it can't have more than 2 bridges to any individual island, then we know it must connect to both of them since there's only these 2 options. And in fact it can obviously only have 1 bridge down here because that's a 1, so that's taken out, so therefore its other 2 bridges must come across there. So that's a nice simple start, and we're starting to build up the grid. Now this one here, we can't yet tell whether it comes here or if it goes here. Looking at this 4, so it's got 2 bridges there. It can have a maximum of 1 bridge here, coming down here. So that still would only place 3 of the 4 bridges. Therefore it must have at least 1 coming across here. So we can mark that in. This 1 cannot come down here for the same reason. They would then isolate from the rest of the grid. It's only got one other option. So it must come across there, which places it. This 3, we're not certain about where else it goes yet. This 4, so we can mark this in straight away. It's got 4 bridges and only 2 options with a maximum of 2 bridges to each island. So it must in fact have a double pair in there and a double pair in here. So that completes that 4, and it also completes this 2. This 5 still has 3 bridges to be placed, and again it can only have a maximum of 2 to each individual island. Therefore it must have at least 1 there and at least 1 there, and there's 1 more still to place. Now let's look at this 2 here. It can have a maximum of 1 bridge there, therefore it must have at least 1 bridge here. Now let's look at this 1, so we don't know whether that goes there or there. This 2, we're not certain of. Let's have a look over here. This 3, so okay, again this has got a maximum of 2 options, and it must have at least 1 to each therefore, because again you can't place all 3 to 1, so that goes there and there. Now let's have a look at this 2 here. It can have a maximum of 1 going up there, therefore it must have at least 1 coming down here. This 2 in the corner can have a maximum of 1 there. If it must have at least 1 there. Paper's moving. Okay, so let's have a look at this 3 here. So it must have at least 1 going up and 1 coming across. So it's quite common in the early stages of a bridge solve that you just mark in some lines, but you can't fully place others. But it all helps because now this bridge here means that we can't come across here to connect the 1 to the 2 because that would be a cross, which is against the rules. So we know that that 1 must come up there. And in fact, now we've placed 1, 2, both of those bridges from the 2, which means the final 1 from the 5 must come across to this 4, and that is now placed, fully placed. So let's have a look. Now let's come across and look at this 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so we're not certain of that one yet. Let's look at this 3. It could come here, here, or here. This 2. Let's look at this 2. That has a maximum of 1 coming across there. So it must have at least 1 up there. What haven't we looked at yet? This 3, have we looked at that? Okay, this 2. So it must have at least 1 coming up here. Because again, if it goes there, that uses up one of its 2 bridges. And okay, so here, these 2 can't connect to each other. It's the same with a double bridge, for the same reason that you can't connect 2 singles together, because they would then be isolated from the rest of the grid. They'd use each other up. So in fact, these 2 have a maximum of 1 bridge between them, and therefore this must come down here for its second bridge. That uses that one, and this one must come up here for its second bridge. This has now got 2 in place. That means this must come to at least 1 over here. This one now has no other options available other than to come up there to that 4. This 1 must come down to that 2, which uses that up and uses that up. This 2 only has the option to double connect there. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. So this has 1 to come, and the only option is to come down here. Okay, now this 4 has got 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, so it's got 1 to place. So let's see if this can connect across here. Is that a valid option? Well, it may not be immediately obvious, but it's not a valid option. Because look, every other bridge along here is, sorry, every other island is crossed off, which means that if this connects here, it would make 1, 2, 3, 4 bridges for this island, and 1, 2, 3, 4 bridges for this island, and there'd be nothing else that could connect in because everything else is fully used. Therefore, this series would be isolated from the rest of the grid. There'd be no way to connect it together. Therefore, that can't actually connect there. So you might like to put an X there to remind you, and that forces the 4 to come down here, and that forces this 4 to come down here. That now means that this 1 must come down here and is used up. Now let's have a look. So this 2 now must double connect to this 3 because it's got no other options. 1, 2, 3, that's fully placed. This 4, 1, 2, maximum of 1 there, therefore must come across 1 more there. I should say it's currently got 1, could have 1 more. However, it must therefore come across here with at least 1. This 3 now must connect to both of these. This 1 must go to this 2. That gives us both there. Now let's have a look. So 1, 2, 2, 2, 2. So this has got 3. So either connects here or it goes up there. Okay, right. This 2 has to connect here because it's got nowhere else to go. So that uses that up. That uses the 3 up. Therefore, this 3 must link across here. 1, 2, 3. This 3 must double bond to this one. Must have 2 bridges. That's that 3. So this has now got 1, 2, 3. This has got 1, 2, so this must come across here with a single to complete. And this 4 now must come across here. 1, 2, 3, 4. And this 3 has got 1, 2, 3 in place. And this 4 has got 1, 2 and must double connect there. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and that is the puzzle solved. So let's just check that everything connects. Let's see if we can reach every other island from this one. And nothing special about this one, of course, you could use any island. Okay. Up there, up here, around there, and around there. Okay, so that is the puzzle solved. Hope you found that video useful on how to solve a bridges or Hashi puzzle. Please do like the video and subscribe to our channel to be notified when we release more puzzle solving videos, and we hope to see you soon.